Welcome to a new Kirblog about a game called Dust and Elysian Tail. And it's great.
And I mean, you know, what really else is there to say? Good night, everybody. Thanks for joining. Nothing. Speechless, stunned. Want to die.
I think we need to tell Hyperduck to put more kazoos in their songs. If there's one thing that's been missing,
I found the secret missing ingredient of this lovely thing we're going to talk about. Welcome, everybody. It is now a week after the lovely 5-year anniversary of a fantastic project that I am very lucky to call myself a incredibly minor part in, but one that I'm very happy to be part of nonetheless. The little indie game that could, known as Dust and Elysian Tail, which came out 5 years ago.
or however you pronounce it.
Elysian, Elijah Wood, that one. The one with the anthro guys, that one.
It's actually pronounced yacht.
Oh, my God. Well, already we've uncovered a massive mystery today. Yeah, 5 years ago, came out on Xbox Live Arcade, and now in this lovely age of 2017, it's on PC and PlayStation 4, possibly other things. I don't know, TurboGrafx. I have no idea.
Also on iTunes.
And on iTunes, yes. And so to join with me today, sadly, because of the fact that he is a very, very busy man for mysterious reasons, we were not able to get the creator of Dust, the head honcho, Mr. Dean Dodrill. We are hoping, actually also a little to pull back the curtain for a second. So we're recording this the Friday before. We have just, hopefully without a single technical hitch or any problems whatsoever, the 5-year anniversary Dust stream that we did, the charity stream with a whole bunch of the cast and crew who have all flown in from LA. So we're doing some time traveling here. I wanted to have this for Tuesday.
Flown into LA, I think, most of them.
Yes. What did I say from LA? I'm so sorry. To
yeah.
LA. Whoops. I'm already fucking it up. Anyway. So we're hoping maybe we might be able to get him on that if possible. But I'm joined by two lovely guests, one of which you're already familiar with. Would you introduce yourself, person who's already been on this train wreck of a show before?
Hi, my name is Mevin Dak. Oh shit.
Shut it down. Shut it down.
I almost thought you said a bad word for a minute, but I doubted you.
Hello, I'm Deven Mack, and I was the voice and casting director for Dust and Elysian Tail, and you might already probably know me as the voice of Raccoon and Tome.
Yes, which has nothing to do with this, but for the sake of people
Absolutely
who
nothing.
know of you already. But although actually, well, there will be some not literal. I mean, I wish there was a Tome crossover, but some talking Tome crossover a little bit later. Nonetheless, new to the show and very happy to have you. He's been a friend for a good number of years now. Would you introduce yourself, Mr. New Person, Mr. Green Man?
I'm Mr. New Person Green Man. That's my actual name.
He's not a Namekian. I mean Green in the new side. Just continue. Just take this away from me, please.
It's Chris. It's Dutch.
Yes.
Don't make fun of the name. No, it's Alex Kain. I helped Dean on the writing and story editing for Dust and Elysian Tail, and I've worked on many other indie games, comic books, and I'm currently a narrative designer at ArenaNet.
Beautiful. And also, the boss character, Baron Kane, unless I'm mistaken, gets his namesake from you, albeit misspelled.
Yes, I purposefully asked Dean to misspell it because I didn't want it to feel like, first of all, like he's like not the greatest, nicest character in the game, so it felt weird to name myself after him. So anyway, yeah, I'm not.
Oh, I thought you were just being humble.
Oh, I'm not humble. Dean's the humble person.
I also thought it was just because, I mean, the character's dead. So
I was,
thought
I was looking out. I was entirely looking out for number one.
Or well,
on that. Well, it's kind of like we had the joke with Gian, the farmer, who's constantly like losing things and getting knocked down. That's named after Chris Gian, obviously the one half of the Hyperduck team that worked on the music.
Yes.
So that was also another hilarious in joke, but only hilarious to us and not really hilarious to anybody else.
So guys, it's been 5 years since the release of the game, but it's technically been a bit longer than that. Way longer for Dean, most of all because, of course, hardcore fans might know that, or maybe not, that Elysian Tail is actually something that predates just the video game. In fact, it's an animation project that he's kind of been working on for a long time, and Dust is something kind of just technically set in that universe as it is. But I actually don't know. I don't know if I've ever. Because we've talked, of course, like for a long time about just the process and everything. But I actually don't know which of you has the kind of earlier point in the timeline of this project. Alex, have you known Dean for a long time? Did you come in before Mack was brought on board, or were you brought in later? What was? Do you guys know?
I don't know exactly when Mack was brought on board. That's a very good question, Mack. When did you start working on Dust?
I feel like I might have been officially involved before you were. I think it was Chris from Hyperduck who first contacted me. I'm gonna say around April 2011.
Okay, so yeah, I do actually. I think I do actually have a little bit of time on you.
Okay, well then, Alex, please start us off with what is your origin point on the world of Elysian, Pelusian, Palooka. Please, just Chris, shut up. This is Chris, shut up. The Kirblog. Everybody else talk instead of me. Go ahead now. Tell us your story.
It's actually pronounced yacht. So what happened was I was working at a small company called Venom Entertainment. We made mobile games. We made a lot of Monopoly games, but we also made an iPhone game called Space Miner Space or Bust, which was kind of like it's sort of like if you took Asteroids and then you turned it into like a story-based RPG with progression mechanics and a weird storyline. And I worked on this game, and Dean wound up playing it at some point on his iPhone, and that was just how he knew my name, which confused me for a little bit because the first time I interacted with him was I'd seen the initial trailer for the for Dust and Elysian Tail, I believe when it made the jump from Xbox Live Indie to XBLA. It was right at that time, right around that time. And I saw a trailer for it, and there was this very brief little snippet of dialogue in it from when Dust is. It's in the opening area, and it's that it's really beautiful up here line. I don't know where we are. And Dean had written all the dialogue himself up to that point, and I was kind of like, ooh, well, okay. Maybe I could help with the writing or something. Maybe help him with that. And so I pinged him on Twitter, actually, of all things. And that was when he didn't have like several thousand people pinging him every day.
And 2 children to take care of, no less.
Yeah, exactly.
Now it's 3.
Oh
now
my God!
3.
Good Lord, man, slow down. No, don't please. I'm sure they're wonderful kids. Anyway, carry on.
So I pinged him on there, and yeah, we started talking. We had. He had played Space or Bust, so he liked the writing in that. We had this mutual love of this terrible video game called Trespasser Jurassic Park, which for some reason, I don't know, we both just started talking about how much we actually enjoyed this game, even though it's recognized to be pretty bad. But so we became fast friends, and we just started chatting it up, and finally. I was like, hey, I could rewrite some of your dialogue, and at that point, like no one had touched anything that he'd worked on except himself. So he was very uneasy about the whole thing.
My baby.
It was totally a baby situation. I was the dingo, and I was going to eat his baby.
No.
But ultimately, he gave me an early build of the game. that went all the way up through. Where did it go to? I think it went up to the first time you visit the village, maybe a little before that. It was still pretty early, I think. It wasn't everything by a long shot. And I just rewrote all the dialogue in the game. I just rewrote everything without really any prompting. It was one of those questionnaires that he sent, like, if you could fix anything in the game, what would you fix? And I was like, the dialogue, and I rewrote everything. So I sent it to him, and he eventually, was like, oh, okay, I guess like the writer's job isn't to like take stuff away from him, but it's to help him find his voice, to help him express what it is he wants to say in a way that maybe he wouldn't necessarily be able to by himself. And so we started a pretty great collaborative relationship there, and the rest, the rest is in the game.
Funny story, just kind of on a quick side note. I think that actually, from when I'd learned, you first telling me kind of about this, I think when we hung out at, was it maybe New York Comic Con a long time ago?
PAX, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe it was PAX. Yeah, God, it's been so long already. But I remember, I think that actually that might have been, now that I think about it, this didn't even occur to me until just now, but now that I think about it, that might have kind of been what got me to work up the courage on another indie project that I was working on, and still technically I'm working on at the time, Cryamore, where I offered to be involved first as the voiceover director and casting person for that, and then I was like, hey, because we were going to do like script meetings and stuff, and everybody got kind of busy with other things on the game, and I was like, can I just write the story? And Rob Porter was like, yeah, go for it. And I'm like, all right. And then I kind of ended up doing the exact same sort of thing that you did, where not so much I was, Rob is a writer too, and he knows the characters and he made them, but I definitely wanted to bring in my experience in that same note. So I think that I might have honestly gotten that sinister idea of just saying, like, let me do it from you. So you might have unknowingly implanted out that within me. So thank you, Alex. But nonetheless,
Sorry, Mac. I interrupted you there very rudely. I was very rude and discourteous.
That you interrupted him and not the other way around.
Don't worry, I'll forgive you publicly. That actually might have been. Didn't you meet again a second time at New York Comic Con? Because I think that's where Stephen Lynch was.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. There was a posse. There was a posse gathered at New York Comic Con.
Posse of dust rejects. So I guess Mackle, it's Deven Mackle. It's your turn. The people don't know that's one of my many nicknames for you, Mackle.
Very
many. Deven Mackintosh and other such things. Anyway, we'll get into some of the sort of cross-pollination with the early days of Tome too. But yeah, April, that was well before it was even on the table that we were going to be doing the series, and I think well before you were going to be Raccoon even. You and I actually, not to go into our history necessarily, but you and I had like gotten to know each other a little bit more over that past year or so.
Obviously, a lot of it started out with Edwin's VG Cats, and then we had our group of where we just watch cartoons together and just talk about stuff. And
and we got to be better friends from there. And I remember those of you who are not aware of a certain semi-viral video that was on Newgrounds called ... which we've talked about at probably other Kirblogs and some of the commentaries and things before. Of all things, that was kind of the entry point of you into this project. Is that not correct?
Yeah, it really, really was. From an interview Dean had done previously, it had been the Hyperduck guys just constantly reassuring him, don't worry, we're going to be able to do this voice acting thing. We'll do this voice acting thing. And eventually it was Chris from Hyperduck who reached out to me after hearing the ... review I voiced, which was then animated by Rice Pirate Mick Lauer. And they said, hey, we really like what you did here. Would you be interested in voicing for this indie game? And I'm like, oh man, this looks so cool. But I'm a union guy. I don't do freelance indie stuff like that. But how about this? How about you let me find people for you some of which I'm pretty sure will do a better job than I ever would have been able to do. And they're like, well, we really, really want you. And I'm like, no, trust me. I got this. So they sent me as a test. They sent me the Mayor Bram some audition documents for him, a picture of the character, some of the lines. At that point, I don't think the lines had been rewritten by Alex, because I definitely noticed a major difference when Alex took more involvement on the writing side of things. Definitely in punctuation and capitalization as well.
Damn, that is just the most backhanded compliment. It's a good thing Dean's not on this podcast.
I love you, Dean.
Yeah, it's okay. He knows.
We do.
Well, actually,
yeah,
real quick, I want to cut in with something, because I don't think I've ever. Maybe I've asked you this before and I've just forgotten the answer, or if you ever found this out, Max. So when they approached you about being in the game as an actor, which I know was slightly on the table for a second, but ended up not being the case, which we'll get to that too. But did they want you to play Mayor Bram? Did they want you to play a specific character? Or did they just want you to be in the game somewhere?
We wanted Mac to play every character in the game.
I think I was literally offered to do whatever I wanted. That's what it seemed like. I'd have to go back and look at the email again, and I'm probably sure
I am curious if, like, I don't know how much, like, Chris knew about. Well, he must have known enough about the characters to be, like, kind of the one to test you on if you were good for the casting job. But I don't know. I wonder if, like, in tandem with giving you Mayor Bram, if, like, that was the character, if they wanted him to sound like what's his face from Third Rock from the Sun or whatever.
John Lithgow. It's me doing an impression of Jerma doing an impression of John Lithgow from Third Rock from the Sun. Mary, we're aliens. Yes, there you go.
Yeah, we're good. I think that was perfectly in sync. I did it. We're on the
Beautiful
wavelength. Anyway, well, either way. So yeah, that was the test, and I do remember when that audition was basically sent out to everybody in existence and, like, the entire circle of online voiceover talent that we knew on planet Earth.
Even people who I figured weren't going to be great from them, I just wanted to also be able to gauge people's recording quality and honestly just the kind of choices that they were going to make as a talent, because I knew this was going to play a major part in just me gathering my acting talent pool for later roles that they'd be a better fit on. So yeah, I wanted everybody to read on that. And eventually we settled on somebody by the name of Stephen Kelly.
Yes.
Who at the time I believe was 18 or 19 years old.
No.
And
I refuse to believe that.
and somehow he's just got this extremely formal aged, like 60, 50-year-old man voice.
Yes, for those of you who don't know, Stephen Kelly, of course, is the voice of Serpentine in Tome, and I was also a incredible musician, singer, songwriter, composer. My God. He is he's somebody. I'm sure we've probably made this joke before on other commentaries and Kirblogs or whatever, but, like, Stephen Kelly is one of those people where, like, me and a lot of our voiceover friends out here will often joke about, oh, no, he can't, Stephen can't move to America. He can't, because he will literally take all of our voice work. He will take all of our jobs because he is so goddamn talented. It's, like, unreal.
Very good, very wonderful person.
And he's also a lovely human being, and is basically, I would say that his talent alone on just that Bram audition, I guess that was enough to solidify not only you in the job of the casting and voice director, but also to show, hey, we're going to get all these folks on this game, and it's going to be great.
Because from what I was told, it was Microsoft who sort of suggested the idea of there being voice work in the first place, and then he was shown to them as a test, and they're like, okay, let's get this rolling, and it all snowballed from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was kind of like, I don't want to say it was an 11th hour thing, because there was time to do it right and to do it well, but it was definitely one of those things where most of the script was written for text, assuming that it would be text, and then I started writing stuff assuming that it would be text, and then at some point Dean just sort of rolls in. He's like, hey, so Microsoft is thinking maybe all this stuff should be voiced. And that's to me that's like I get on a Delta flight and they've got me set for an overhead bin, and they're like, we're thinking that maybe you should have all of first class to yourself. It's like, what am I supposed to say to that? Like, no. Like, it was brilliant, and like I was so astonished because like up to that point it really felt like a one-man show. Like Dean was, just working on pretty much everything by himself, and the idea they're like, oh, we're gonna have a cast now of like people, like more than like a couple of people now. And we're going to have to do auditions, and we're going to have to listen to things and pick roles, and I'm going to have to tweak some dialogue so that it fits voice a little better, because there's a huge difference between dialogue written for text and dialogue written for voice, in my opinion anyway.
We should mention, by the way, and this is absolutely not to undermine either of your guys' great work on the game, as well as the Hyperduck folks, and I'm sure anybody from Microsoft that was helping with play testing and publishing and things. But
Chris, we liked you. We liked your role. Okay.
No. Oh my God. Okay. Oh, for Christ's sake. No. The thing about Dust that, I mean, I don't know if this was like much of a thing that was like mentioned in interviews or marketing, because of the fact that Dean is such a humble guy, but like Dust seriously is like, for the most part, is when it comes to like the game content, like the actual, living, breathing stuff of the game itself, it really was done all by Dean. Like I can't remember, what was the program he used to make it? Do you guys remember?
That was XNA.
Okay.
Yeah, he did it all.
Which is also like kind of, that's like old by this point, yeah?
It's not even a program so much as it is just like a language. Like he built all his own tools. And yeah, it's
guy teaches himself programming, had been doing animation for a long time, learns how to do this kind of as a side thing, and it becomes this incredible, like, even though it's technically not, like, even like the crew considers Dust to be like a one-man show still, kind of at the end of the day, just
Absolutely.
with like the massive amount of man hours, excuse me, and love and blood, sweat and tears and massive amounts of passion he put into it.
It's like for all of the work that everyone else did on it, in the short term, like, I was crunching on a game for my day job at the time, and I would go home at like 1 or 2 in the morning and work on Dust for a little bit, and then like the one day a week I got off, I would work on Dust. Like even after like even that, like I still look at my contributions as like pathetically minor, in because Dean was at his desk like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for like 4 years, and it's absolutely insane. But yeah, like he wanted to do it as like a simple like $1 game on Xbox Indies, and it sort of ballooned out of control. And he read
it always does. It always turns into something bigger than it's intended to be.
It was exponentially bigger. It was massively bigger. He read this book by James Silva, who one half of Ska Studios, the team behind the Dishwasher series, Charlie Murder, Salt and Sanctuary. But James like literally wrote the book on XNA, and Dean read it, and now they're friends, and it's really cool. But there's pour one out for XNA. That language was really awesome, and it helped a lot of indies get started. But now Microsoft does not use it anymore.
Yeah, now Unity is the new thing for everybody and their mom to use.
Yeah.
Cough, cough.
Yes, cough indeed.
So I guess kind of melding both of you guys together into.
Oh God, that's terrifying.
Mack
oh
Kain.
my God, we would be.
Mack
I gotta
Kain.
say, that would be that would be.
Malix.
No,
like
Malix. Malix sounds like a transformer.
Devix, I like it.
Devix sounds like a file format.
Take your pick. Or a programming language. Anyway, so your guys, if I'm remembering, I guess also not to include myself in this, but to just sort of place where I was in the timeline. We were, Mac, you and I were kind of starting on the process for Tome shortly after that, because I was beginning to write scripts and episode ideas and a lot of the early production stuff until we started on the first episode in the summer of 2011. So not long after you had kind of fully secured the job on Dust for casting and directing. And a lot of some of the early casting decisions kind of, funnily enough, in tandem with what I was doing were kind of happening at the same time.
Absolutely.
Because you were introducing me to a lot of, I mean, I was getting to know a fair amount of folks from like kind of the online, I guess, I hesitate to say the word amateur voiceover community on the internet because a lot of them have.
Honestly, a lot of them for Dust, it was their first job, so it's fair to say amateur.
Sure, and I mean, and many of them beyond Dust have gone on to do a whole lot of fantastic professional work. But I was meeting a lot of folks that I hadn't met from, like the places like the Voice Acting Alliance and Voice Acting Club that I hadn't or maybe I'd heard the names of but never interacted with before. And there were a lot of folks because you were even looking for a lot of new people as well to
I was spending hours and hours like every day just scouring through all the demos I could find on the VAA, the VAC, and on Newgrounds and YouTube. And oftentimes, I'd be like, Chris, you got to hear this person. I don't think anybody knows who they are or how good they are. I don't think they know how good they are. And Anna Kingsley was one of those people who voiced Haley in Dust and Flame Girl in Tome.
Yeah. I remember you showing me her demo. And Flamey, not to go into the Tome thing for too long, but Flamey was one of the few characters that we auditioned for the show at all. And Anna ended up at a very, very close tie between her and Jessie Nowak, but she ended up winning out, and then we became really close friends with her. And then Haley ended up being a really fun, beloved character in Dust as well. So it was kind of interesting because, sorry, just to move off of because like I don't know, I don't want to put too much emphasis on myself in this because of I have an even smaller role in all this than you guys do, but just to insert
just a little
myself
smaller.
Here. Just a little. So Alex, because from what I understand, since of course we didn't meet until way later, pretty much the end of production. From what I was kind of hearing is that a lot of your guys' jobs were sort of happening in tandem with each other because it seemed like, okay, we got this new character, just having just completed them, we got to cast them next. And then it seemed like they were just kind of coming in like once in a while without knowing fully what all the content was going to be. So from your perspective, as like the game was coming along, like, do you have any stories about, oh, I remember when like this character was first created and like introduced, or like this character was something different, like kind of how that part of the process was developing with you helping out with the story?
I have very, very fuzzy memories about that whole process because that was like the heat of development. Like everything was just going 1,000 miles an hour.
Oh yeah.
For me, it was more like at some point I went into a spreadsheet and there was just a whole bunch of dialogue in there, and I would go in and punch stuff up, and there were some like half-formed ideas or like. I added a new quest. I need some dialogue for it. And I go in and I would just write things. And then in a couple of weeks, I would get, Dean sending me files and be like, hey, Mac sent us these auditions for, this thing. And we need, we need sides for this thing. And, it's really just the dialogue. It's the final dialogue in the game. Like, it's not even like, it's not like I was putting together like specific sides for auditions or anything. It's just like, oh, okay, well, the dialogue's written, take it, go have fun, do your thing. And every once in a while, Dean would put something in front of me and be like, which one of these voices do you like more? And I'd be like, I don't know, this one. Great. Okay. They're in. I'm like, oh, okay, great. And it was like that over and over and over again. But I think that the one that we spent, well, obviously, we spent the most time on the big three, Dust, Fidget, and the Blade of Ara.
Yes, which changed a few times, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's always tough, finding the right protagonist voice. And when you've got three of them and there's banter, it's incredibly difficult to, like, nail down things like chemistry. And I'm sure Mac can give you a million stories about how all that came together.
Well, I guess, on that note, because I remember when that was, I think there were a few other characters that were cast by that point, but I remember when, like, the main trio were kind of like your central focus for a while, Matt. Do you want to talk about kind of the process of that for a little bit?
Well, the way a lot of things were going, I was already recording. I'd already cast and recorded a bunch of the side characters before I even started recording for Dust, Fidget, and Aura, and I didn't even know how the game was going to end at that point.
Mhm.
Because there was a lot of the
nobody knew. Nobody
a
knew
lot
how
of
the
the, a
game-
lot of the side quest dialogue was fully written and finalized, and I'm just like, how is this game going to end? I don't know, but let's keep going. But initially with Dust, Fidget, and Aura, we did have Lucien Dodge playing. I think we were pretty much close to 100% on having him play Aura. Because we were going to go for this sort of ambiguous voice. We even considered the idea of maybe having a male and female voice speaking at the same time on Aura.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had him there, and it looked like we were going to have Philip Sacramento to play Dust, and Fidget was going to be Kim Lin Tran, which I knew from the second I saw the character design.
Yeah, that was. I mean, like certainly she was properly auditioned, but I mean that was a pretty clear cut. Like, you know, we knew what was that she was the right person for that one.
Yeah, I distinctly remember, like hearing the audition and being like, oh.
We did have to have some callbacks. I know Dean maybe needed a little bit of convincing, because we did have 3 people who were really, really good. We had it was Kimlin, it was Christina V, and it was someone by the name of Lacey McCod, who was also super talented. But there was the callback really, really did it, because that's where Kimlin really captured the sensitive, really, really timid side of Fidget, the really emotional side, as opposed to just the wacky screaming, which there still is a lot of.
Yeah.
Yes.
But we needed someone who could hit those small moments, and she nailed it there. But basically what it all boiled down to is we ended up not having Philip available at the 11th hour when the script was finalized and good to go. We didn't have Philip available to record for Dust anymore. So we shuffled Lucien over to Dust, and then we just didn't have an Aura.
Real quick, by the way, I want to interject because I have a file on hand that I thought would be interesting maybe to play, if you'd be cool with that. Another person who was actually pretty high up on consideration for the part of Dust when Lucien was still Aura, and I think that, I don't remember exactly if this was before or after Philip was like the solidified one, but another person who was really up there was our good friend Matthew Gafford, otherwise known as Frederick Fox of Fox in Space fame.
Yeah.
And I have a clip, if you don't mind my playing it, Mac, of Lucien Dodge as the Blade of Aura, Matt Gafford as Dust, and Kimlin still as Fidget. Would you mind if I played that real quick?
Feel absolutely free. For a little bit more setup, this was from the initial round of auditions. During the initial round of auditions, I think we had up there as our top 3, I think it was Lucien and Matt Gafford and Philip Sacramento.
Sweet.
Yeah, this was also, I'm pretty sure this is not, I'm pretty sure I didn't touch up this dialogue by this point. I'm pretty sure that this was original dialogue, unedited dialogue.
Yeah. So I'm going to play this. This is one of the opening scenes of the game when all 3 characters all first kind of meet properly. So here we are.
Dust. Dust. Awaken. Rise.
Why have I been summoned?
The answers will come. Now rise and claim the blade of Aura.
Phew! I made it! The sword lays dormant for 200 years, and guess who's on duty the day it decides to fly off by itself?
And who is she?
My apologies, Fidget. The one standing before you is Dust, who has summoned me.
Oh, now it talks! This thing is full of surprises.
Your name is Fidget?
That's me, Keeper of the Blade. And you're Dust?
Dust? The name doesn't sound at all familiar. Nor do I remember summoning this weapon.
Your memory will return in time. But we digress. There is much to do.
Wait, where are we going? I can't just let you take the sword!
There must be a reason it came to me.
Fine. I'm too tired to argue about it, so I'll tag along for now.
Yeah, so that very different kind of sound, very different kind of dynamic with how this is, because see, what was interesting about this was, because not every production gets to have the luxury of this, where like the casting process and the actors, I don't want to say that they're directly collaborating, but like the characters are being rebuilt. Mac and I were actually just kind of talking about this the other day, where like this is starting to happen a little bit more with current video games and animated series, but where like, we should maybe like change around our approach with how we were thinking of like executing this character based on who we're getting. Because like for instance, like just even switching Lucian from Ara to Dust, of course Ara ended up having this when Edward Bosco, which we'll get to that in a moment, this I think you described it as like a Professor X kind of or maybe like I said like an Obi-Wan Kenobi kind of feel to him. And Lucian, of course, has this kind of higher, younger voice, so almost kind of like a timeless sort of thing to him. And
which gives us the androgynous thing that we were considering.
Right, which of course Lucian fans of Lucian's work know he's quite good at those kind of characters. And with Frederick's take on Dust is very. I think I called it kind of like a Clint Eastwood, like really, really super badass kind of thing, which. Ultimately, in the final game, Mac, you consider Dust to be kind of a dork sometimes.
Oh, he's a huge dork, and that's what makes him so much fun. The approach we got from Matt initially definitely was more along the lines of that wandering cowboy, like seeing the hat. Like I immediately thought, okay, he's going to be some sort of cool wandering samurai sort of guy, and it turns out he's just a dork. He's a dork who makes dumb jokes, and he's not really, he knows how to get serious, but he likes making jokes. He's a fun guy.
Yeah, I mean, to what I kind of, this is dipping into the stuff that you got to, let's even talk about this, Alex, because to me, well, first of all, for anybody who hasn't played the game, I don't want to spoil everything, because if you have not played this game, first of all, please do yourself a favor and get it. So there's a couple things that that are major plot points I don't want to spoil about Dust's character arc in particular, because
I will say there's like a statute of limitations on this stuff. I mean, 5th year anniversary. I don't know.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, Dust is it's still not a massively mainstream game, and so I'm sure that there still are. In fact, I'm actually even hoping, again, to time travel a little bit, I'm hoping that maybe after, by this point, we've done the stream, I'm hoping that we have interested a few more people into playing it if they've, maybe tuned in and are interested. Because I've even met people. I was actually talking to, I'm gonna drop a name here. Please forgive me. Ashley Birch of Hey Ash What You Playing fame. We were recording a KO episode, and I was telling her I was doing this. She said, "Oh yeah, I've heard of that game. Yeah." And so I don't know if she's played it, but I like the presence of it is definitely out there because of its reputation. But I don't know how many people have played it, and I know that there's a whole lot of people that still, even if they've heard of it and know how great it is, they haven't tried it for themselves. So I still want to leave certain things open. But my point being, Dust, as he develops in particular, his very unusual kind of archetype, I guess I'll say, like the kind of the kinds of struggles that he goes through and ultimately has to come to grip with towards the end. With in the first scene, so this isn't a spoiler. He doesn't remember who he is and why he's there, and some of the twists about those answers are pretty heavy, and I absolutely adore those kind of things. What Mac describes as fittingly like kind of a dork, what I kind of take him as is this sort of just like awkwardness, in that he's just so like emotionally lost at all times. Like, and on a side note, also on the voice side of things, certainly with Lucian, in that because you remember, Mac, I was like, oh man, like, Frederick's voice for Dust is so cool. I really wanted him on that, but like now I don't regret it all, because I mean, you've really got an iconic character when they're fun to do impressions of. I don't
Ginger.
Who am I? And I'm like, God damn, it's so good. And I mean, Lucian is like one of the best of like us. I have no bones about saying that. I mean, he's incredible. But I take this kind of like, he's this very like lost individual that is just kind of going through life, and despite the fact that he is very like where am I kind of thing, he still is actually very rangeful in his subtlety. Like, he has a lot of highs and lows.
Well, I will say the side quests in particular, that's what I love so much. That's when you know, he kind of steps away from the seriousness, the focus on like, who am I? And he's just making dumb jokes with Fidget so often of the time.
Yeah, that was, yeah, I mean, that was like, a lot of the plot points I feel like weren't nailed down when I started writing it. So it felt like a lot of what we were doing was like finding that character, like finding out. There are a couple elements to it, right? There's like writing the character well, and then there's finding the right voice for the character, and then there's directing that voice. So it was, like Dust is, an amalgamation of, of me, Dean, of Mac, of Lucian, and then there's the chemistry between him and Fidget, which like if that didn't work, then the game wouldn't have worked at all.
Yeah, well, certainly, because I mean, then the final thing is just executing and making all those things work together in a way that's cohesive, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly.
Certainly did.
The fact that stuff came together as well as it did, given the constraints that we had and the time that we had to do it in, is just like it blows my mind. Like, there's that story that Dean will often tell of, when he put all the voices in for the very first time into the game file. They were loading simultaneously. Every single voice file in the game was loading simultaneously at launch. So the game took like 15 minutes to load, and he couldn't figure out why it was doing it. And it was just this black screen for like 15 minutes. And, and he like had a panic attack and was just like, nope, that's it. We might have to cut all the voices in the game.
He didn't even tell me. He told Bosco, because I think when I edited and sent him the last lines, I think it was the day that he had to, or the day before he had to submit to CERT or something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, thank God. I made it just in time to send him all the voice files. And then, apparently he told Bosco, and then he freaked out and he just took a nap for like an hour.
Yeah, and then while he was sleeping, he discovered the solution to the problem.
in a dream, I wanted to say that story for a little later, but yeah, I mean, like in his fucking dream, he discovered the code to fix everything.
Yep.
Truly a god to
I
us
thought
all.
we were PG friendly, Chris.
I'm sorry. I'll bleep something. No, I won't. You think I edit this show? But rewinding for a second. Speaking of Bosco, let's talk about Bosco. For a second.
Let's talk about Bosco.
Why don't you please already go into that section?
Let's talk about Bosco and how he more or less pulled an Alex Kain. With
what is that? That's a thing. That's a thing
that is totally a thing. So I initially brought him on board to be my assistant of sorts. Anytime I just wanted to maybe get a second opinion on something, because I always felt like he had a really good mindset about the business. He had really taken this major interest in things. I'm like, okay, I'll have him by my side, and he'll get to learn a lot from me just about acting, about casting, the whole process. And particularly, he was also auditioning for some roles along the while, and I'll say he was actually right up there with Edwin for the voice of Fuse. That was pretty much could have gone either way.
Yeah.
And eventually, when it came down to the role of Ara, at that point, we'd pretty much filled every role, and it was looking like he wasn't going to be in the game. And I had no intention of being in the game myself. But when we had Ara left, and I think we had maybe like a week or two to get everything recorded. I'm like, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? Bosco's already auditioned for Ara, and his audition was just way off. I had no interest in casting him there. Because he's a trying to be tough sports jock guy. So playing a character like Ara was just totally out of his wheelhouse. So I guess I got nobody. I have no time to do more auditions. I guess I'm gonna do it myself for no credit. Because I'm union and I'm not supposed to be doing stuff like this. So,
but even from a moral perspective, like I know, like especially now having worked with you and even just learned a lot from you about casting for my own stuff and for other people's stuff. Like you would never do that. You would never put yourself in something that you were unless it was a very specific, kind of case like that. Or what also, just kind of a side note, what almost happened, you were going to be a character in the game at one point, but also gave it up. Do you want to mention that real quick?
Sure. I'll throw that out right now. The voice of Matty, the younger brother of Haley, who literally just kind of grunts and grumbles. And I think at one point Dean was considering doing that himself, and then it was offered to me. And then I said, you know what? Just in case at any point, be it a sequel or whatever, just in case that character actually talks later on, I'd like to give it to somebody who's capable of playing that sort of child voice with ease. So I ended up giving it to a talented youngster by the name of Johnny Aponte.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love dearly. A lot of Homestuck fans would know him. He's voiced John Egbert in like many a fan production. And great guy.
Back to Aura, though.
Yes, please.
Going back to Aura, I'm like, okay, you know what? I guess it's gonna have to be me. I really don't want this because casting director casting themselves in anything just really isn't fair, but it seems necessary. And I said, okay, Bosco, you're a little bit better with handling a lot of like vocal effects than me. So I'm gonna give you like 30 seconds of me reading some Aura lines, and I'd like you to take that and you'd come up with a filter, work on an audio filter with the ducks. And he's like, Mac, I really think I can play this role. I really think you should give me a shot. I'm like, nah, man, you don't understand how this works. You don't understand this character type. I'm sorry. So what he decides to go and do is he starts working on a filter, but he starts working on a filter over his own voice. Because what he decided to go and do was record every single Aura line in the script and then send those to me with the filter on them. And I'm listening through his audio, and I'm like, hey, you know what? Hold on a sec. I'm having some audio problems right here.
Oh, no, you are?
Oh man.
Oh, no.
What? Oh, no.
Okay, well,
we're good.
Nothing happened. Everything's fine. Carry on.
So I was listening through the audio that Bosco had sent me, and I'm like, this sounds really, really good. I hear the first 30 seconds. I'm like, wow, that's exactly what I pictured. That's exactly what I want to hear. And then I heard the rest of it. And that's when it started to turn into, oh, you are this tough jock from Chicago who's trying to sound very sincere and wise. Wait a second. The first 30 seconds was him literally imitating me and what I'd given him.
Oh, man.
Oh, shoot. Oh, goodness. So he can play this role, but only when he's parroting exactly what I did. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? So I call him up on the phone, and I think he's literally on riding a bus, coming back from an internship at the time. I call him on the phone. I'm like, what did you do? And he's like, what are you talking about? What do you mean? No, you know exactly what you did, Bosco, and I hate you so much right now because this is probably what I would have done in your situation. So tell you what, I'm going to give you the role of Aura. We're going to try it, but you might regret it because I am not taking this lightly. I'm going to make you work as hard as I would work on something like this, and we'll see what happens. And oh boy, yep. I won't say it was definitely not one of the easier sessions because he was learning so much on the fly. And after our first session, I pretty much told him, study any Shakespearean actor ever. Study any actor who has just kind of a proper formal way of speaking. And you know what? I'm going to give the guy credit because I would not have enjoyed being in the position that he was in because I was tough. I did not pull any punches. Pretty much any sort of frustrations that I had in the project in general, just basically he took those. And he was a trooper, and to his credit, he learned. He was studying, okay, this is what Mac likes. This is what's working. And as things progressed, he went from having absolutely no idea what he was doing to having, I'm going to say maybe 10 to 15% of an idea of what he was doing.
Oh, you're so gracious, aren't you?
But you know what? When all was said and done, like we knew that like it needed that kind of process. He needed to be pushed in that sort of way. And that trial by fire, like definitely, we got what we needed in the end. We had something that we were very, very proud of.
Yeah, no, and you know, I mean, it certainly shows because the final product was certainly pretty fantastic, I would say. You know, as a totally biased party, but nonetheless.
Couldn't be prouder of the guy for putting up with me.
I want to talk about one more particular character. This involves both of you guys because this I forgive me because I cannot remember if this was a big thing that had to be dealt with before or after. Actually, I guess it probably would have been before. But so General Gaius, and also the advent of what and who the villain of this game was going to be. So Alex, do you want to start on this? Because if I'm not, if it's okay for me to say this, and if I'm remembering right, was there even a villain on the table for a good while, or was it not even known what the last boss was going to be? In the fact that you said you didn't know what the ending was going to be, did you know what the final showdown was going to be?
No, when we started, Dean had this sort of idea in his head for how he wanted stuff to resolve. We've talked a little bit about like this, you know, this extra part of the game that we were thinking about doing, or he was thinking about doing fairly early on. But very quickly, as the game world started coming together, as the story started coming together, we're like, no, there's no way that we're going to be able to do all this stuff. So let's look at what we've got planned. Like, let's look at what's in the pipeline now. And sort of rejigger things a little bit and see if we can make this all work. So
we basically had to cram about 10 months worth of production into like 3 months, wasn't it? Something like that?
It was something like that, yeah. So we were at PAX East, and I can't remember when that is. I think it's in like March?
I feel like April 2012.
April 2012. So to give some idea is that in April 2012, we had a demo that Dean had put together of the Sorrowing Meadows, because that was the furthest that the game had been developed at that point. And it was, you know, it was one of the cooler environments of the game. So it was a custom demo. There was a little custom dialogue for that, but it was a little stretch in the Sorrowing Meadows, and people played it. And Microsoft came over because it was right. You know, the kiosk for Dust and Elysian Tail was like between Minecraft and another XBLA game called Deadlight.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Like,
yeah,
sandwiched between greatness.
Yeah. So Microsoft noticed that the line for the Dust kiosk was always very, very long, and people were constantly like crowded around it, and a bunch of news media came over. Giant Bomb mentioned it at their event. We got a lot of people the next day, and at that show, Microsoft kind of pulled Dean aside, and they were like, "Hey, how would you feel about having this ready for Summer of Arcade this year?" And this is April, right? This is April, and they were like, "What if it came out for like the end of Summer of Arcade?" And Dean was like, "Well, I mean, the game's like half done. I've been working on it for like years, and it's only like half done." And like, "Well, yeah, just like think about it." And so, you know, Dean and his wife Elizabeth sort of sat and talked about it, and they just like they sort of made this decision. They're like, "Okay, yeah, I'm basically going to engage in the most hellish experience imaginable for the next 3 months and finish this whole game." So yeah, he had May, June, and part of July to finish the entire game after the Sorrowing Meadows. And that was, you know, that's a lot. And that's also you know, getting all the spit polish in there, getting all the VO squared away.
And he had the third child was due in July too.
Yes. It was a thing. It was a job. I was basically, I remember he was just on, we communicated through Steam chat pretty much exclusively for the development of Dust. And he was just on all the time. He was never not online. He was always there, and it's not like, every once in a while, like someone leaves their computer on and you type and you say like, "Hey man, you there?" And 5 hours later, like, "Oh, sorry man, I was sleeping. I left my." No, he was just always on.
Yep.
It would be kind of scary because like I'd talk to him the whole day. I would like leave work and I would do a little bit of writing to help him out, and then I would go to bed, and then I'd wake up and he'd still be on and be like, "Did you get any sleep?" And he's like, "No time, no sleep."
What even is sleep is for the weak.
Oh, so he was Deven Macking.
Yeah, he was Deven Macking.
Deven Macking on that game.
Yeah. So getting back to like the plot structure and everything, we knew very early on that we weren't going to have enough time to get this new area in, and the original plot structure of the game was actually not very structured. It was kind of like all of the little bits, all of the levels were kind of like vignettes that weren't necessarily tied together. Mm-hmm. So like you would go to the village, and then you would find and fight Fuse, and then you would go back to the village, and this earthquake would happen, and then you would go down into the caves, and the caves weren't really connected to anything. It was just like, oh, the ground opened up, and then now you're going into the caves. Yikes. And you're gonna fight this boss, and then after the boss, you go to the Sorrowing Meadows for a different reason, and after the Sorrowing Meadows, you go to the mountains for another reason, and it, like none of this stuff really had a common thread through it. It was just kind of like Dust going around helping people. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, well, I'm not so sure I agree with that sort of approach from like a compelling narrative standpoint. I feel like we can do more to tie it all together. And that's sort of how General Gaius came around, was the idea that we needed like a character that pulled all of these little vignettes together. So it, now instead of Fuse just being like a random character in a village, like he has this connection to General Gaius. Now when you go into the caves, it's not just because the ground opens up, and as Dean would often say, like, the ground opened up, you want to go explore it? And I'm like, yeah, like I want to go explore it, but why does Dust want to go? Like, he's just about, like, in the original game, in the original script, it was the conversation with Ginger, like, I'm paraphrasing obviously, but it was like, Dust, your secret identity is, oh no, the ground is opening up, you should go in there.
Oh my god.
I'm like, like at my computer screen. So yeah, we had, Dean and I had some pretty robust conversations about stuff like that. And so now it's like you go into the caves, and it's because the water god is actually like, she doesn't want to, she's involved in this situation. And then you go to the Sorrowing Meadows, and that's also tied to General Gaius. Then you go to the mountains, and that's tied to General Gaius. And so like all this stuff ended up getting pulled into that. And so, General Gaius turned into this really interesting way to pull all those threads together.
Well, because I remember while all these other side quest characters and like the villagers and some of the bosses and things were being cast, I think I don't, maybe I'm remembering wrong, but I think I was just like, is there a bad guy? And Mac, you were like, I don't know. there was talk about, I mean, I know that they're in the world of the story, there is a king character that we don't see that may perhaps have something to do with if there's ever a sequel, I'm sure, or something. But I think that there was a point in talk where like we didn't even know if Gaius was a character that existed yet or anything.
Yeah, we made fun of that actually. Like there was a comic that
yes.
Oh, yeah.
So like Dean and I like every once in a while, like Dean and I will just riff, like we'll do like improv lines or something, and we'll just like create this scene. And this one in particular, like we thought it'd be hilarious to release like a mobile game called Fidget's Face Eater, and Fidget just ran around and ate people's faces off, and then got to like sit in the head stumps and use them as like little machines. And it was a very strange idea, but basically that sort of morphed into this idea that like, you would just fight instead of fighting the final boss, Fidget would just run in and chew his face off, and then sit in the bloody stump and be like, "Look, I'm the king!" And then
all shall bow before me. Sorry, carry on.
So yeah, it was kind of funny because that that sort of manifested from that, like, we don't know who the villain is. It's just the bad guy. This is the bad guy who's gonna like capture Ginger, I guess, and Ginger's gonna be in the castle. There's a castle now. And go to the castle, gonna find the bad guy who's got the robes, so that's how you know he's the bad guy.
And you get the fire flower and the mushrooms, and gotta have that too.
Yes.
His name is Trouser, actually.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So yeah, that was kind of it was, like with any story, right? You're just like you're talking about it sort of offline for a little bit, and you throw ideas around, and not everything's going to work. And eventually you have to sort of buckle down and make stuff. And then that's, when the rubber meets the road, stuff gets lost. So that's just the way it goes.
And then we ended up having Gaius, and then he had we had his little meanwhile at the villain, but not really the villain, but the final end antagonist.
I'm really curious as to how he became this sort of really sympathetic figure in the end, where he's not really somebody who's like, I'm the evil bad guy. It's like, oh, you kind of see some of where he's coming from. He's just somebody who really misses his friend.
Yeah, the whole, like, one of the things that Dean really wanted to push was that, like, none of the characters in the game should really be, like, mustache-twirlingly evil. Nothing that you do, and like, you should not ever be motivated by revenge at any point in the game, which was a very cool direction to get from him, because that needed to inform every single conflict in the game. Nothing you do is actually about seeking revenge on anybody, which, in games is normally what you do. So it was cool, like, to approach Gaius as a character who has very discreet, relatable motivations, who actually comes off as kind of sympathetic, even though he's engaging in this, like, terrible, very one-sided conflict.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, it's interesting because even in a way, again, I don't want to spoil anything, but there is a character we learn about, through his relation to Gaius that maybe has something very much to do with Dust, who is very violent and perhaps a little more the kind of the closest thing to, like, an evil kind of character. And then his ultimate involvement and what becomes of him was also part of the reason of why I found Dust to be such an intriguing character. But this kind of, like, this kind of very, like, I guess alternative sort of conflict to it, where it's like it's very gray, and even there's a point made kind of before Undertale sort of made this a very sexy thing to do in your game stories, but noticing, like, hey, you've been murdering lots of creatures and things, like, and soldiers on your way here. Don't you feel bad about that at all? And he's like, oh no, oh god, I do feel bad about it. I'm a monster. It's like, oh, yeah, and then God, so what? It was then, help me, August. What day? 15th. August 15th, 2012. It launched.
Yeah.
Yep.
It did.
My God, and here we are. And it's been quite a ride, I would say.
And that was, oh god, just I'm like having flashbacks to the day when it launched, and it was like, it's
good
like,
ones, I hope. Good ones.
Oh yeah, like, it's, like, it reviewed very well in all the major publications. Initial feedback was very good. The sales right off the bat were very good. But it was, you release a game and you don't immediately know how well it does. You kind of have to wait a little bit for that first cycle of people buying it and playing it and beating it, and then taking time to comment on it. You get occasional people who, like, before they even buy it, make comments on it, which you're just going to get anyway.
Yeah.
Well,
but especially this one had some, I won't say what they were, but of course this one had some particular thoughts from certain people that were, I think, a little unfair regarding the art style, which I think was a little aggravating, I found, especially because, because, like, Dean is, like, a really talented artist and animator. If anything, it's interesting because I know he's talked about this in some interviews as well, where, like, in a way he kind of held back his true power as an animator a bit, because, like, Dust, has, like, full-on 2D traditional animation, and he kind of did this sort of compromise style for the other characters, where the kind of puppeted sort of segmented animation.
Well, that was entirely out of just time, like, the time and scope. Like it would have been pretty much impossible to fully animate all
Every
the
character,
all-
yeah.
yeah, exactly. So
But
also
no,
the
yeah.
yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say the Xbox 360 itself couldn't handle that much data at the same time too.
Now less of a problem, thank God. With
Yeah,
sharing
now less of a problem, but I want to say that Dust, just having Dust animate on screen was something like half of all the processing power of the Xbox
Oh my
360,
God.
because
Yeah.
it was just it's like a couple of 4K sprite sheets that it's just loading stuff from, and it's just a massive amount of RAM that's needed to make that happen. But yeah, I mean, Dean, there were points throughout development where Dean got very self-conscious about the art style, but I think honestly that nowadays that's not as big of a problem. I think that there was a definite period of time in the early 2010s in particular where animal characters were very strange. Like people like them, like no one really liked them.
They went out of style after because of course as we can all tell just from his influences, Dean grew up in the time where that was the norm when it came to animated series on on TV.
You had Tiny Toons, Bucky O'Hare, Jazz Jackrabbit. That kind of stuff was everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, Dean worked on Jazz Jackrabbit, so he was part of that. I mean, we throw around Secret of Nim and Watership Down a lot, as tonal inspirations for
Great
Dust,
movies.
but. Yeah, spectacular, classic movies. The thing was though is that people were looking at oh, it's cute animals, so I don't want any part of that. And there were people actual people God, who was it? It was Jessica Chobot or somebody. Someone was hey, check out Dust and Elysian Tail, and she's no, animal characters not for me, thank you. I'm oh man,
come on, man.
Yeah, come on.
Well, I think it's nice now in that it's lasted this long and it's gotten to port to these other consoles and things and now, as I think just indie games in general have gotten so much more appreciated, and especially for when they have just something different about their art style or character designs or in general, because Dust is objectively it is a very beautiful looking game, and again especially with Dean having done everything on his own in that regard.
Yeah. I mean, I want to say I'd like to hope, and this probably isn't the case, but I'd like to hope that Dust sort of helped usher in, a little bit more appreciation toward, not just independent games now, but an appreciation for the older those types of stories, those darker kind of fun animated stories, where you could have cartoon characters and tell not kid stories with them.
Oh yeah, I mean, Dust is I know he wants to do Elysian Tail as a feature film someday, but God, I wish even somebody would just throw a bunch of money at a studio and make Dust into a Secret of Nim style 90s dark animated movie. I want that personally. I mean.
I actually was just observing this a little while ago. The gorgeously rendered animal characters in fun independent game subgenre has expanded exponentially since Dust came out. You've got you obviously had Dust in 2012, but then you've got Ghost of a Tale, Tooth and Tail. You've got Moss coming out on PSVR. You've got two,
Ori and the Blind Forest.
Yeah, I was just about to say
Ori and the Blind Forest, and now Ori 2. You've got just this incredible amount of Tunic obviously coming out in the future as well. Just really great, just fun looking games that really look like they're all sort of looking back at the at where in the 80s in particular you had these really great dark movies that had very serious themes to them, but you told them with an art style that was approachable for the whole family. And so that was how you could scar kids very easily back then. It's a good way of doing that.
Well, there's certainly some scarring material in certain scenes of this game in a cool way that I see. It's funny because again we're time traveling a bit here, but so by the time this is out, we've already done this. But I'm excited to see the game again because I just played all through it in I think about 2 or 3 days, as soon as it came out, and I've not touched it since then. Since you guys were doing some of these other streams in the past couple years. And this year we're going to be playing through the entire thing front to back. So hopefully, so I'm excited to actually like just see the whole journey again.
Are you gonna have like a Skype stream or a Discord that I can pop in?
Yes. Well, hopefully,
yeah.
I will. Now I want to say like, oh, by this point, yes, you were totally there and came in and said hi, and it was great to have you on the stream, Alex. Totally. With all
I was there, and I got to give really cool running commentary about the game while I was there.
But
I would highly recommend that in the past you go see it.
Yes, for certain. I'm sure I'll have like a link to like where it'll be put up on Twitch somewhere. But in fact, actually, by the time that this is out, again, it'll be all up and archived. So I'll be sure to link to the Twitch archive of the whole stream that we did. And thank you in advance to everybody who hopefully donated to Direct Relief. And
yeah,
you were
your money,
amazing.
actually, it was incredible. We got so much money that we had to
yeah,
donate
dude,
across several charities.
We got $1 billion. It was great.
Yeah.
Could dress up in a fat suit. I wish Jerma was able to be there. Anyway, I guess, guys, we went even way longer than I was even expecting to. But thank you for sticking around so much. I guess real quick as we're.
I feel like we kind of have to finish that point on Gaius. We actually never really
yes.
got fully around to that.
Sorry.
But yeah, so I'll try to get the quick version of this. Yeah, what it ultimately came down to is he started getting written more sentimental as when time came around for me to start auditioning him, and we auditioned so many different people. We couldn't just quite find that right voice, but the one that really caught Dean's ear kind of surprised me. It was River Canoff, who I was expecting, this big, powerful, warlord guy. But he had, as Dean described it, there was kind of like this sort of beauty to his voice. There was this really true, friendly sincerity that he liked on who was basically our main antagonist. And the interesting thing about that is if we had Philip Sacramento on Dust, he would not have had vocal chemistry with River Canoff on General Gaius because he would have sounded older and more intimidating than Gaius.
Yeah, which actually, to add something to this too, so around the time that this was happening, I keep saying if my memory serves, but I do remember this very distinctly. This was a time when, because, so my part in Dust was one of the Moonblood soldiers in one of the final stages of the game. But I consider my real quote-unquote job on the project was staying up until like ass o'clock in the morning with Mac, keeping him sane while he was going through auditions, going through scripts, and just generally like having to editing sessions and things and all this stuff. All at the same time in a very, very short span of time. And I remember this came up, and it was such a crunch, and it was so like up in the air as to what was happening. I think there were a couple other people that were in line, and I even went ahead, and I won't say who they were, but I even was like, hey, like, because it was very much like the situation of when you almost had to do Ara. Where I was like, hey, so just in case this gets like a little too nutso, because I want to give credit on this too. Mac was very, very insistent on wanting to have pretty much the entirety of the cast of this game all be basically up-and-comers. There were Lucian certainly had done plenty of professional voiceover work by that point, and a lot of other folks in the cast as well. But like the grand majority,
not many other folks in the cast.
Yeah,
no,
but
it was basically just him.
Yeah, sorry, my mistake. I'm getting my timeline wrong.
Okay.
Because everybody's done so much stuff by this point. I'm just like, wait, who was that? Whatever. But yeah, I gave Mac a veteran. Who I had on hand that I knew would be willing to do a project like this. And I said, if you cannot get anybody else that you would prefer that is, kind of more on the underdog side to get on this character, please at least let me give you this backup because I know that this person can play this character in a way that would work. And they gave an audition, and it was good, and it was definitely along the lines of, I think, what Gaius was supposed to be.
I liked it a lot.
But I think I really gotta hand it to Mac in that with River, who ended up, getting the part in the end, pushing to have, the cast of this game be all, I don't want to say indie, but like, underdog, I think is the kind of shared sort of thing between Dean and everybody, was really cool. And I think it's something that, has branded the sound of this game as very unique. And, even just on, I guess, the selfish perspective, for us, I mean, they're all people that we know, generally everybody that we all know pretty personally. There's a few people that like we don't talk to like super, super often, but like even then it was still like everybody all very much like really appreciated getting to be part of this. And, which is why like it's really cool that, even now as we're recording this, we have everybody, well, not everybody, but a whole lot of the cast. I would say like over half of the entire cast of the game here with us together to do this. And of course we do want to have many folks call in to say hi and give shout outs and things. So yeah, it's really an incredible, like on everybody's, part in this. It's really amazing to see like how it all came together in the long run. So you guys, I think all should be proud of yourselves, so anyway.
Thank you. And I really mean thank you, because I would go as far as to say you were like practically my secondary assistant director as far as things go.
I'm not trying to be like, tell me more. No, did I recommend other people for other characters? Because I honestly don't remember if it was like, oh, hey, here's some people that I worked with or whatever.
I can't recall for sure.
There were a lot of people that we went through for like, because there were at least
I remember
five people per character.
I counted specifically because there were some people who thought, Mac is just casting his friends. I'm like, no, I'm very thorough with this. I counted and I auditioned about.
No, I don't like any of these people.
I auditioned 188 people in total.
Wow.
And on average, I would have maybe about somewhere between 20 to 30 people read for each individual role, and I picked out who would read for each character. It wasn't a cattle call sort of thing, except for on Mayor Bram.
Yeah, because that was to prove everything. But and I mean, I forgot what I was going to say. Whatever. Excuse me. Pardon me. But I think it was a really valiant and successful effort. To, by the way, not to mention, we didn't even say this, but coordinating people literally scattered across the planet. Like I don't know if you still have this up somewhere, but there was a video you cut as like a proof of concept of your casting stuff of like, here's everybody I worked with, and here's also where they're from. So when you don't think about this, but you're accounting like 8 different time zones that you're recording while you're on Eastern Standard Time in Toronto. That's not an easy feat, and such a short time to do that. With how many actors were in this?
We had 40 different actors, and on top of that, I was working on Beyblade and like 2 or 3 other shows at the time. So I'd say about 75, maybe somewhere between 50 to 75% of the audio in dust, I edited on my laptop on a train on my way back and forth from recording for Beyblade.
Yep, which I also fondly remember. And we have, I think we have, how many of the cast do we have here? We've got I think about 15, 20 or so of them, and then plus you, and then we'll be having some just like kind of friends of the production showing up as well. So, but yeah, once again, we hope that you all showed up and donated and had a great time as we're predicting the future.
Chris, I don't know what you're talking about. They did show up. Everyone was there.
$1 billion were made and
so
donated.
Much fun.
It was incredible.
I know.
And then Jesus showed up and he was like, "You guys did a good job."
Man, that thing.
He was thanked at the end of the game.
That's true. That's true. He really was the backbone of the whole production.
Was.
He came in and he spruced up the dialogue a little bit. It was
he's in the game too. You just can't see him. He's there in spirit as the Holy Spirit. Okay, I'm gonna before I offend anybody else. I'm so sorry.
Okay,
guys, we've gone so much longer than I expected. Again, thank you for taking the time to tell all these great stories. Any just last thoughts you wanna put out there? Any other shout outs or any final words to say about the game? Now we're in. It's 5 years old. We're gonna send off Dust to kindergarten. It's gonna be lovely. He's gonna get picked on, but he's gonna know he's gonna know what he's gonna do with his life someday.
Yeah, I mean, geez, I really, I said, I'm just super grateful to Dean and really everyone who worked on the game, because it really did sort of mark a new step in my own career. I've worked on, since I've worked on Dust, I've worked on a lot of other freelance titles, a lot of great games, and I can certainly assume that at Arena, like even at ArenaNet, like people will occasionally be like, "Hey, you're the guy who worked on Dust, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." They're like, "Well, cool." The one person actually like who I worked with was like, "Yeah, my opinion of you has increased by a lot." I was like, "Thanks."
Yeah, that is certainly a nice thing to because you don't always get that like, "Oh, you're the guy from whatever thing that like is a thing that you're proud of." So hang your proverbial hat on that one certainly.
Yeah, and most people's default state for getting to know me is that they despise me horribly.
Oh, shut up!
So it's
Shut
very important
up!
that I pull that out of my hat as much as I can. No, but it was the very first time I worked on a console game. It was the very first time I worked with a voice cast. It was the very first time that actors like actually read things that I wrote. It was so much bigger than anything that I felt like I'd worked on at the time, and I'm still kind of blown away by how much people like it, and it's still going strong. Like it's weird. Like people are still buying the game. Like people are still going on this purchasing the game.
People are still drawing pictures. People are still doing fan art. People are still doing cosplay. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible, and it blows me away. And I'm just super, I'm just out there in the world, and all this stuff is happening to me, and it's awesome. And I couldn't have done it without Dean. Dean, 99.9% of everything in Dust is Dean, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
So that's all him.
Yeah, massive shout out to him. I don't know if he'll ever hear this, but Dean, if you happen to hear this, thank you for, after listening to us go on and on for an hour and 20 minutes, but thank you for doing such an amazing job and letting us get to be a small part of this as well. This is amazing. And I guess that's gonna, sorry, Mac, do you have anything as well?
Oh, not anymore.
Well.
Thanks for forgetting about
over.
Sure. All right.
All right. You like that?
Honestly, there's still not a single day that goes by where I'm kind of like not sort of in awe that like, wow, we actually got to do something so cool that like means so much to so many people. Like anytime I see somebody write that, oh, I got into drawing more because of Dust. I got into voice acting. I got into writing. That stuff just basically is the whole reason why I'm involved in just the whole artistic side of things in the first place, to find ways to inspire and encourage people. So yeah, just it's something I'm grateful for every day. And despite all the major bumps we had along the production line of things, at the end of the day, I would not have it any other way.
Yeah, absolutely. Gentlemen, thank you. Thank you both very, very much for being part of this. And happy birthday, Dusto, the Elysian Tail. You're a big boy now.
Excuse me, Chris. It's pronounced yak.
Sorry, that's my personal dialect. We call it something different in Niosi land. We had to localize it different. Everybody out there, thank you for listening. I'm assuming if you listen to this far, you've either played the game or have been very heavily interested in it. So if you've not played Dust and Elysian Tail, please pick it up for Xbox, PlayStation, or on PC on Steam. Please do experience this amazing game. It's a ton of fun. I love it dearly. And if you have played the game already, please in the comments below check out Oh, I'm sorry, check out. God. Let us know your thoughts about the game, favorite parts, favorite characters, favorite moments, anything like that, anything at all that you want to share. Mac and Alex, do you guys want to share any of your social media stuff at all, or?
Yeah, sure. I'm on Twitter at TDC Presents, and that's a thing. I work at ArenaNet. You can check out all the cool stuff coming out for Guild Wars 2. We got the new expansion, Path of Fire. It's coming out in September. It's going to be great, and very exciting times. I would,
Sweet.
That's it. That's all I got.
Yes.
And you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, MySpace, Friendster, and all those other things that possibly don't exist anymore. Mac the Actor, MACTHE Actor, and you'll find me all over. You can hear me also on Nickelodeon's Mysticon series, which will be coming out later this month. So, yeah.
In the U.S. as well?
Yes, Nickelodeon in the U.S. and YTV in Canada, and hopefully other places too on other channels.
Excellent. All right. Well, again, we're in the past, and we have. Mac, you mainly have like 8 billion more things. You're not sleeping tonight, are you? With the amount of preparations you have to do.
Yeah, that's actually I think the better term is Dean Dodrilling. I'm Dodrilling.
Thank you guys again. Thank you all for listening. Please enjoy the game if you haven't yet. Thank you for playing and enjoying the game, hopefully, if you have already played it. And hopefully we'll see y'all on the next one. Fare thee well.
Love you.
Bye.
All right.
Well, bye.